Our guide kept saying to us, there's the refuge up there. We're almost there. And most of us were kind of looking into the distance thinking, where? But then as our eyes adjusted to the landscape, you could make out a sort of hut building shape. There was a sense of relief around the group. Our first day had come to an end. All that was left now was to relax for the night in the hostel. There was little pockets of snow started appearing on the path, and we knew that tomorrow was going to be a lot harder, and we'd be in the deeper snow. The refuge area was like a little mini town. It was made up of several hostels.
Yeah, banana.
Come on, girl. Well done.
Quite myself.
Of course, our hostel was the furthest one away. Once we'd settled into our rooms, we came down for another meal. Jack was still pretty sick, so he just went straight to bed. We only had a few hours to get some sleep, as we had an early start in the morning. The plan was that we were going to reach the summit of Toubkal just as the sun was going to rise. It was a slow, cold start for us, and we were starting to feel the altitude kicking in. We were kitted out with crampons to help make it easier in the snow. Only a few minutes in, this happened. The chain on one of my crampons snapped. The guides had no spare kit. I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue. I wasn't going to let a bust crampon stop me from reaching the summit. I decided to carry on with just one crampon on one foot, which was a bit weird to walk on because I was all lopsided and one foot was higher than the other. But my option was be the one crampon wonder or to head back down. As the light started to break, our guide made it clear to us that we weren't going to reach the summit in time for sunrise. I don't think anyone in the group was particularly bothered. We were enjoying the views. It was nice to see the sun coming up while we were walking. We had regular rest stops on the way up, just to catch our breath. It was at this rock here that I realised a valuable lesson. Reaching for an energy gel that I brought along, I found the altitude had made it burst in the packet. Much to the amusement of the group, I had a lovely sticky white residue all over my bag, my jacket, my trousers. There wasn't really much I could do about it at this level, so I just had to crack on. We could make out some other groups further up along the trail on the big wall of ice that lay in front of us. My one crampon was still hanging in there. It wasn't causing me too much of an issue and holding me back. The ice pack here was pretty frozen solid, so it was like walking on concrete. When you're walking in a big group, you end up leapfrogging each other. Everyone's natural pace just kicks in and you just do your own thing. I found myself checking my watch, looking at the stats, figuring out how far it was to the next ridge. This stretch of incline was really tough. The legs were aching from a constant uphill push on the icy snow. As a group, this is where you need to encourage each other, push each other forward to make sure everyone keeps going. Small words of encouragement and praise can go a long way up here, making sure nobody's left behind at the back of the pack. Some of the group were really struggling with the altitude at this point. You can tell when people start tripping over a lot and kicking their own feet. The lower oxygen levels at this altitude make your head go a bit funny. You feel dizzy, you can feel sick. It feels like you're walking in slow motion. One thing I always notice when hiking at altitude is my breath. It gets a lot harder to breathe, and I do what I call the double breath, where I breathe in and then have to breathe in again because my body doesn't feel like it's had enough oxygen. Just up ahead we got the boost we needed. We could see the ridge and knew that once we were over that, we'd be able to see the summit. When we got to the ridge, the views were absolutely spectacular. We had to stop and take as many pictures as we could. From here we could see the whole Atlas mountain range around us. Unfortunately we couldn't stop and admire those views for too long, and we had to push on up. The summit was waiting for us, and we still had to turn around and make our way back down on the same day. I dropped to the back of the group at this point because the guys here were struggling, so I tried to give them a little boost to push them a bit further and faster. What we thought was the summit turned out just to be another false summit. We still had further to go. I couldn't resist stopping and looking at the views behind me. With this kind of view all around, it was hard to choose where to look. As you can see, Jack was fully recovered by this point. He might actually be the first person to have done the floss in the Atlas Mountains. Mary Engelbright famously quoted, "Don't look back, you're not going that way." Well, I disagree with you, Mary, because I love looking back at where I've come. It always gives me that sense of achievement to see where I started and the journey I took to reach this height. Picking out those areas that I struggled on the route, where I didn't think I'd be able to get any further. But now look, I've come all this way. And not just the journey up this mountain, the journey over the last weeks and months, the challenges life's thrown at me, the struggles that I've had to overcome just to make it to this point on this day, to be here and to see these amazing sights. I like to think maybe that if Mary hiked up this mountain and saw these views, she'd change her mind. A few of us reached the final stretch towards the summit. We could see the famous triangle in front of us and wait for the rest of the group to catch up. We started this adventure as a group and we wanted to finish it as a group. Everyone's pace slowed dramatically as we neared the summit marker. There's almost a reluctance to finish because that's the journey over. You've done it, you've completed the challenge, you've made it to the top. All those emotions wash over you, all the hard work was worth it. We'd reached the highest point in Morocco, Mount Toubkal. We were just lost for words. We gazed around at the mountainous rocky landscape with an air of disbelief that we'd actually reached this incredible height. This is a hike definitely to add to your list. Look at these views. Mount Toubkal is actually 4,167 metres high, but I forgot to take a picture of it when we were at the top. Because we didn't make it to the summit for sunrise, we were now racing the clock to get back down to the first hostel we stayed at. The descent in the snow was a lot harder, and it was about this time I was really missing my second crampon. One of the group lent me a spare hiking pole which helped with my balance a bit and meant I wasn't falling on my arse all the time. When we reached a point where most of the snow had melted away, we stopped and took off our crampons because they were proving a bit troublesome in all the rocks. They become more of a hindrance than a help if you're wearing them in the wrong conditions. We could see the hostel in the distance, and it felt like we got down a lot quicker than we imagined it would take.
Go on, lad.
I waited to welcome back Jack and the last of our group. He'd had some crampon issue too, but it was good to see that all traces of that illness had gone. After one final feast, we said farewell to all the staff, making our way down the final part of the mountain.
Slurking.
The group spread out a bit more on the way back. People were walking in pairs or on their own, taking the time to contemplate what we'd just achieved. The trail seemed a lot quieter on the descent. There was no mules, no porters, no locals walking up and down with boxes. It was almost as if the mountain was giving you that peace and that quiet time to reflect. As a group, we knew when we reached the bottom, we'd all be going our separate ways, and for some of us, we'd never see each other again. Most of the group had only gone to Morocco to summit Toubkal, and then they were going straight home again. A few of us had made plans to stay in Morocco for the full week. High up on the mountainside, we saw a young local lad, and he had hundreds of goats with him. Fortunately, as cute as these baby goats were, the guide informed us that they were a local delicacy, and they were just being reared for meat. I don't think our efforts to shoo any of them away would have helped save any of them, and I'm not sure we'd have managed to smuggle one back in our bags on the plane. Run free, my little goatlet friends, run free. I'd highly recommend Mount Toubkal for anyone looking for a hiking mountain challenge overseas. The route we took was spread over 3 days, which gives you time to acclimatise, reduces the impact of altitude sickness. All your accommodation and your meals are included, and you get porters to carry the bulk of your luggage around. It's a great introductory mountain if you're looking to do your first altitude hike, or even just to add to your list. After reaching the hostel at Imlil, we were dropped off in Marrakesh in the minibus. For our next adventure, we were heading out into the Sahara Desert, and we had a camel to catch.